You won't believe what happened to me the night the doctor handed me that note. I still get chills thinking about it. One moment, I was sitting in a hospital room, waiting for routine test results. The next, I was holding a crumpled piece of paper that would change my life forever. The words were simple, but they made my blood run cold. Don't go home. Run. If you think you know your own life, your own family, your own safety, think again. What I discovered that night will haunt you. But before I start my story, tell me in the comments. Where are you watching from? Have you ever had a moment when your whole world turned upside down in a single instant? Share your city, your country, or your own story below. And don't go anywhere, because what happened after I read that note is something you'll never forget. Let me take you back to the beginning, before everything changed. My name is Sarah, and until that night, I thought I had the kind of life most people dream about. I lived in a quiet neighborhood, in a house with a white picket fence and a garden full of roses. My husband, Mark, was a respected accountant, the kind of man who always remembered anniversaries and brought me coffee in bed on Sundays. Our daughter Lily was in her last year of high school, smart, kind, and always quick to make me laugh. We had a dog named Max, a golden retriever who followed me everywhere, and a circle of friends who felt more like family. Every morning, I'd wake up to the sound of birds outside my window and the smell of fresh coffee drifting from the kitchen. Mark would be reading the newspaper, Lily would be scrolling through her phone, and Max would be wagging his tail, waiting for his morning walk. We'd eat breakfast together, talk about our plans for the day, and then go our separate ways. Mark to his office, Lily to school, and me to the local library where I worked part-time. Our weekends were filled with laughter and love. We'd have barbecues in the backyard, movie nights with popcorn and blankets, and long walks in the park. On Sundays we'd visit my parents for dinner, sharing stories and memories around the table. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. It was safe. It was home. Looking back, I realize how easy it is to take happiness for granted, to believe that the people you love will always be there, that the world is a safe place, that nothing truly bad can happen to you. I was naive, I see that now, but at the time, I thought I had everything under control. There were little things, of course, small moments that, in hindsight, should have made me pause. Mark would sometimes come home late, claiming he had to finish work at the office. Lily seemed more withdrawn than usual, spending hours in her room with the door closed. Max, our loyal dog, would bark at shadows in the hallway, his hackles raised as if he sensed something I couldn't see. But I brushed it all off. Life gets busy, I told myself. Teenagers need their space. Work can be stressful. Dogs bark at nothing all the time. If only I had paid more attention. If only I had asked more questions. But I didn't. I was too busy, too comfortable, too sure that nothing could go wrong. Then, one afternoon, I started feeling unwell. It was nothing dramatic at first, just a headache, a bit of dizziness, a sense of fatigue that wouldn't go away. I thought it was stress, or maybe a touch of the flu. But when I nearly fainted at work, my boss insisted I go to the doctor. Better safe than sorry, she said, handing me my coat and calling Mark to pick me up. At the clinic, the doctor ran some tests and told me to wait for the results. Mark sat beside me, scrolling through his phone, barely looking up. I tried to make conversation, but he seemed distracted, distant. I chalked it up to work stress and let it go. After what felt like hours, the doctor returned. He was a kind man, with gentle eyes and a reassuring smile. He told me my blood pressure was a little high, but nothing to worry about. He said he'd call with the rest of the results in a few days. I thanked him, gathered my things, and prepared to leave. That's when he handed me the note. He pressed it into my hand so quickly I almost didn't notice. His eyes met mine for a split second, and I saw something there. Fear, urgency, a silent plea. I slipped the note into my pocket, confused but too polite to ask questions. Mark was already at the door, impatient to get home. In the car, I unfolded the paper and read the words that would change everything. Don't go home. Run. My heart started pounding. I glanced at Mark, who was focused on the road, his face unreadable. I tried to act normal, to hide my shaking hands, but inside, I was spiraling. What did the doctor know? Why would he tell me to run? Was I in danger? Was my family? I didn't have any answers. All I had was a note, a growing sense of dread, and the feeling that my perfect life was about to shatter. As we drove home, the note burned in my pocket like a secret I wasn't supposed to have. I kept replaying the doctor's face in my mind, how his eyes darted to the hallway, how his hand trembled as he pressed the paper into mine. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, some kind of misunderstanding, but the fear in his eyes was real. I could feel it in my bones. Mark didn't notice my anxiety. He drove in silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I tried to make small talk, asking about his day, but he brushed me off with one-word answers. The tension in the car was thick, almost suffocating. I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye, searching for something, anything that would explain the doctor's warning. But Mark was a closed book, his expression unreadable. When we pulled into the driveway, I hesitated. The house looked the same as always, roses blooming by the porch, Max's toys scattered on the lawn, Lily's bike leaning against the garage. But something felt off, as if the world had shifted just a few degrees. I forced a smile, thanked Mark for the ride, and followed him inside. Max greeted me at the door, tail wagging, but his eyes were wary. He sniffed my hand, then glanced nervously at Mark before slinking away to his bed. I knelt down to pet him, whispering, "It's okay, boy, I'm here." But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure I believed them. Inside, Lily was at the kitchen table, headphones on, scribbling in her notebook. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place. Relief, maybe, or worry. "Hey, Mom, you okay?" I nodded, forcing another smile. "Just tired. Doctor says I need to rest." She nodded, but didn't press. I wanted to hug her, to tell her everything, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I understood what was happening. Mark disappeared into his office, closing the door behind him. I stood in the hallway, the note crumpled in my fist, and tried to decide what to do. Should I call the doctor? Go back to the clinic? Pack a bag and leave without a word? Every option felt impossible. I went to my bedroom and locked the door. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and searched for the clinic's number. I dialed, my heart pounding, and waited for someone to answer. "Dr. Patel's office," a nurse said, her voice cheerful. "Hi, this is Sarah Miller. I was there earlier today. I need to speak to Dr. Patel. It's urgent." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller. Dr. Patel left early today. He said he wasn't feeling well." My stomach dropped. "Do you know when he'll be back?" "I'm not sure. He said he'd call if he needed anything. Is there a message I can give him?" Hesitated, unsure what to say. "No, that's okay, thank you." I hung up, my mind racing. Why would Dr. Patel leave early? Was he in danger too? Was someone watching him? Watching me? I sat on the edge of the bed, the note clutched in my hand, and tried to think. If the doctor was warning me not to go home, then home wasn't safe. But why? What could possibly be so dangerous in my own house? I thought about Mark, his late nights at the office, his sudden mood swings, the way he avoided my eyes. I thought about Lily, her withdrawal, her nervous glances, the way she flinched when Mark raised his voice. I thought about Max, the way he barked at shadows, the way he hid under the bed when Mark came home. A cold realization crept over me. What if the danger wasn't outside? What if it was right here, in my own family? I tried to remember if anything had happened recently, any arguments, any threats, any signs that something was wrong. But everything seemed normal, at least on the surface. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe I'd been so focused on keeping up appearances that I'd missed the warning signs. I decided to test the waters. I left my room and went to the kitchen, where Lily was still working. "Hey, sweetie," I said, keeping my voice light. "Do you want to go for a walk with Max?" She looked up, surprised. "Now? It's getting dark." "I know, but I could use the fresh air, and I think Max could too." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. Let me grab my jacket." We walked in silence, Max trotting ahead, his nose to the ground. I glanced at Lily, searching her face for clues. "Is everything okay at home?" I asked quietly. She shrugged, her eyes on the sidewalk. "I guess. Dad's been stressed. Work stuff. Has he said anything to you? Anything that made you uncomfortable?" She shook her head, but I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes. "No, not really. He gets mad sometimes, yells, but he's always sorry after." I nodded, my head aching. "If you ever need to talk, you know you can tell me anything, right?" She nodded, but didn't say anything more. When we got home, Mark was waiting in the living room, his arms crossed. "Where did you go?" he demanded. "For a walk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I needed some air." He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Next time, tell me before you leave." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Of course." That night, I lay in bed,
the note hidden under my pillow, and listened to the sounds of the house, Mark's footsteps in the hallway, Lily's soft breathing in the next room, Max's quiet whimpers at the foot of the bed. I knew I couldn't stay much longer. Whatever the doctor had seen, whatever he knew, I had to find out before it was too late. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the house made me jump. I kept replaying the doctor's warning in my mind, trying to make sense of it. Don't go home. Run. What had he seen? What did he know about my family that I didn't? I stared at the ceiling, listening to Mark's steady breathing beside me, and wondered if I was imagining things. But the fear in Dr. Patel's eyes was real. I couldn't ignore it. The next morning, I woke early, my nerves raw. Mark was already up, making coffee in the kitchen. I watched him from the doorway, searching for any sign of the man I'd married. He looked the same, calm, collected, even affectionate as he handed me a mug. Rough night? He asked, his voice gentle. I nodded, forcing a smile. Just couldn't sleep. He kissed my forehead and told me to rest. I'll take care of breakfast. You need to take it easy. His kindness unsettled me. Was I being paranoid? Or was this just another mask, hiding something darker? I tried to shake off the feeling, but it clung to me like a shadow. Lily came downstairs, her eyes puffy from sleep. She barely glanced at Mark before grabbing a granola bar and heading out the door. Bye, Mom. Love you. She called over her shoulder. Love you too, sweetheart, I replied, my voice catching. After they left, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the note. I knew I needed answers. I decided to go back to the clinic, hoping to find Dr. Patel. Maybe he could explain. Maybe he could tell me what he was so afraid of. I drove to the clinic, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The receptionist greeted me with a polite smile, but when I asked for Dr. Patel, her expression changed. I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller. Dr. Patel isn't here today. He called in sick. My heart sank. Do you know when he'll be back? She shook her head. He said he'd call when he was feeling better. I thanked her and left, my mind racing. Was Dr. Patel really sick? Or was he hiding from something? I sat in my car, staring at the clinic, and tried to decide what to do next. I remembered the nurse from yesterday. Her name tag had said Maria. Maybe she knew something. I went back inside and asked to speak with her. After a few minutes, Maria appeared, her eyes wary. Mrs. Miller? Is everything okay? I hesitated, then showed her the note. Her eyes widened. He gave you this? I nodded. Do you know why? She glanced around, then leaned in close. Dr. Patel was worried about something. He said he saw something in your test results, but he wouldn't tell me what. He just kept saying, she can't go home. It's not safe. A chill ran down my spine. Did he say anything else? She shook her head. He left in a hurry. He looked scared. I thanked her and left, my mind spinning. What could be in my test results that would make the doctor warn me not to go home? Was it something about my health? Or was it something else, something about Mark, about my family? I drove to a nearby park and sat on a bench, trying to think. I pulled out my phone and searched for any messages from Dr. Patel, but there was nothing. I checked my voicemail, my email, even my spam folder. Still nothing. I called my sister, hoping for some comfort. Hey Sarah, everything okay? She asked. I hesitated, not wanting to worry her. I'm just feeling a little off. The doctor gave me some weird advice yesterday. She laughed. Doctors are always telling us to rest more, eat better. Don't stress about it. I wanted to tell her about the note, about my fears, but I couldn't. Not yet. I didn't want to sound crazy. After a while, I drove home, my mind still racing. When I walked in, Mark was in his office, the door closed. I could hear him talking on the phone, his voice low and urgent. I pressed my ear to the door, trying to make out the words. She doesn't know anything. I'm handling it. Just stick to the plan. My blood ran cold. Who was he talking to? What plan? I backed away from the door, my heart pounding. I went to my room and locked the door. I pulled out the note and stared at it, willing it to make sense. I knew I couldn't stay here. Whatever was happening, I was in danger. That night, I packed a small bag, just the essentials. My wallet, my phone, a change of clothes, and the note. I waited until Mark was asleep, then slipped out the back door, Max at my heels. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. I drove to a motel on the edge of town, paid cash for a room, and locked the door behind me. Max curled up on the bed beside me, his warm body a small comfort in the darkness. I lay awake, listening to the sounds of the night, wondering what I would do next. I knew I couldn't run forever.
I needed answers. I needed to know what Dr. Patel had seen, what Mark was hiding, and why my own home had become a place of fear. As the first light of dawn crept through the window, I made a decision. I would go back to the clinic as soon as it opened. I would find Dr. Patel, no matter what it took. I would uncover the truth, even if it destroyed everything I thought I knew. The motel room was cold and unfamiliar, but it was the first place I'd felt safe in days. I barely slept, my mind racing with questions and fears. Max stayed close, sensing my anxiety, his head resting on my lap as I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the last 48 hours. I kept checking my phone, half expecting a call from Mark, or worse, a knock at the door. But the night passed quietly, and as the sun rose, I felt a strange sense of resolve settle over me. I was done running. I needed answers. As soon as the clinic opened, I drove there, parking far from the entrance in case Mark was looking for me. I wore a hat and sunglasses, feeling ridiculous but desperate to avoid being recognized. Inside, the waiting room was nearly empty. I approached the receptionist, my voice barely above a whisper. "Is Dr. Patel in today? Please, it's urgent." She looked at me with concern. "He's here, but he's not seeing patients yet. He's in his office. Should I tell him you're here?" I nodded, my heart pounding. A few minutes later, Dr. Patel appeared in the hallway, his face pale and drawn. When he saw me, relief flickered in his eyes. "Sarah, come with me." He led me into his office and closed the door behind us. "I'm so glad you listened to my note," he said, his voice trembling. "I was afraid you wouldn't take it seriously." I sat down, clutching my bag. "What's going on, Dr. Patel? Why did you tell me not to go home?" He took a deep breath, glancing nervously at the door. "Sarah, when I ran your blood work, I found something strange. There were traces of a medication in your system, one you weren't prescribed. It's a sedative, the kind that can make someone confused, weak, even unconscious, if the dose is high enough." My stomach dropped. "Are you saying someone was drugging me?" He nodded. "I checked your medical records. There's no reason for you to have that drug in your system. I was going to call you, but then I saw your husband in the hallway. He asked a lot of questions about your health, about your test results. He seemed too interested. That's when I realized you might be in danger." I felt sick. "You think Mark was drugging me?" Dr. Patel hesitated. "I can't say for sure, but I've seen cases like this before. Sometimes, when someone wants to control or harm another person, they use medication to make them vulnerable. I didn't want to alarm you in front of him, so I wrote the note." I stared at him, my mind spinning. "What should I do?" He leaned forward, his voice urgent. "You need to go to the police. Bring the note, your test results, anything you have. Tell them everything, and don't go home, not until you know it's safe." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "Thank you, Dr. Patel. You might have saved my life." He squeezed my hand. "Be careful, Sarah. And if you need anything, call me." I left the clinic, my legs shaking. I sat in my car, trying to process what I'd just learned. Mark, my husband, the man I'd trusted for 20 years, might have been drugging me. But why? What was he planning? And how long had this been going on? I drove to the police station, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. I told the officer at the front desk that I needed to speak to someone about a domestic violence situation. Within minutes, I was sitting in a small interview room, telling my story to a detective named Ramirez. I showed him the note, the test results, and told him about Mark's strange behavior, the late nights, the phone calls, the way Lily had been acting. Detective Ramirez listened carefully, taking notes. "You did the right thing coming here," he said. "We'll open an investigation right away. In the meantime, do you have somewhere safe to stay?" I nodded. "I'm at a motel. My daughter is still at home though. I'm worried about her." He frowned. "We'll send an officer to check on her. Do you think she's in danger?" I hesitated. "I don't know. She's been acting strange, but I thought it was just teenage stuff. Now I'm not so sure." He nodded. "We'll make sure she's safe. In the meantime, don't contact your husband. Don't go home. If he tries to reach you, let us know." I agreed, feeling a mix of relief and terror. I left the station and drove back to the motel, my mind racing. I called Lily's school, asking to speak to her counselor. I explained that there was a family emergency and that the police would be coming to check on her. The counselor promised to keep an eye on her until the officers arrived. Back at the motel, I paced the room, waiting for news. Hours passed. Finally, Detective Ramirez called. We spoke to your daughter. She's safe. She said she's been feeling sick lately, tired all the time. We're bringing her to the station to meet you." Relief flooded through me. When Lily arrived, she ran into my arms, sobbing. "Mom, I was so scared. Dad's been acting so weird. He keeps giving me these vitamins every night, but they make me feel awful." I hugged her tightly, tears streaming down my face. "It's over now, sweetheart. You're safe." That night, in the safety of the motel, I told Lily everything. About the note, the doctor, the police. She listened, wide-eyed, then nodded. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what to do. I stroked her hair, promising that we would get through this together. But inside, I knew the hardest part was still to come. We had escaped, but the truth about Mark, and what he was planning, was still waiting in the shadows. The next morning, I woke up in the motel room with Lily curled beside me, her breathing soft and even. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. We were safe, at least for now. But the questions kept swirling in my mind. Why had Mark been drugging us? What was he planning? And how long had he been hiding this side of himself? Detective Ramirez called early. "Sarah, we need you and Lily to come to the station. We have some questions and we want to keep you both protected while we investigate further." I agreed, packing our things quickly. Max seemed to sense the tension, sticking close to Lily's side as we left the motel. At the station, we were led to a quiet room where a female officer brought us tea and tried to make Lily comfortable. Detective Ramirez joined us, his face serious but kind. "We've started looking into your husband's background," he said. "There are some things you need to know. First, we found evidence that Mark has been filling prescriptions for sedatives under a false name. He's been picking them up at different pharmacies around town." My stomach twisted. "So he really was drugging us?" Ramirez nodded. "We also checked your financial records. There have been large withdrawals from your joint account, money you didn't spend, right?" I shook my head. "No, I had no idea." He continued, "We believe Mark has been moving money into a separate account. We're still tracing where it's going, but it looks like he's been planning something for a while." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Is Dad in trouble?" I hugged her. "We're going to be okay, sweetheart. The police are helping us." Ramirez leaned forward. "Sarah, do you have any idea why your husband would do this? Any recent arguments, threats, or changes in his behavior?" I thought back. He's been distant. He started working late, taking calls in the garage. He got angry when I asked about money, but I never thought he'd hurt us. The detective nodded. "Sometimes people hide their true selves for years. We're going to keep you and Lily safe while we gather more evidence. In the meantime, don't contact Mark. If he tries to reach you, let us know immediately." We spent the day at the station, answering questions, filling out paperwork, and trying to distract Lily with games and snacks. The officers were kind, but I could see the worry in their eyes. They knew we were still in danger. That afternoon, Ramirez returned with an update. "We've issued a warrant for Mark's arrest. We have enough evidence to bring him in for questioning, but he's not at home and his phone is off. We're tracking his car, but so far, no luck." A chill ran through me. What if he comes after us? "We have officers watching the motel and your house. You'll stay here at the station tonight just to be safe." Lily clung to me, her fear palpable. I tried to be strong for her, but inside I was terrified. What if Mark found us before the police did? What if he was desperate enough to do something terrible? As night fell, I sat in the small room with Lily and Max, listening to the sounds of the station, phones ringing, officers talking, the hum of the vending machine in the hallway. I tried to reassure Lily, telling her stories from when she was little, singing her favorite lullabies until she finally drifted off to sleep. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the last few weeks in my mind, searching for clues I'd missed. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the unexplained expenses. I remembered the way Mark had looked at me lately, cold, calculating, as if I were a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. Around midnight, Detective Ramirez knocked on the door. "Sarah, we found Mark's car. It was abandoned near the old industrial park on the edge of town. We're searching the area now." My heart pounded. "Do you think he's coming here?" "We don't know, but we're not taking any chances. We have extra officers on duty tonight. You and Lily are safe." I nodded, trying to believe him, but fear gnawed at me. What if Mark was watching us right now? What if he was waiting for the perfect moment to strike? I spent the rest of the night sitting by the window, watching the parking lot, jumping at every shadow. Max stayed by my side, his ears perked, his body tense. I whispered, To him, "You'll protect us, won't you, boy?" He licked my hand, as if to say yes. As dawn broke, Detective Ramirez returned. "We found Mark," he said quietly. "He was hiding in a storage unit at the industrial park. He's in custody now." Relief flooded through me, so intense I nearly collapsed. Lily woke up and I hugged her tightly, tears streaming down my face. "It's over, sweetheart. We're safe." But even as I said the words, I knew the story wasn't finished. There were still questions to answer, secrets to uncover, and a family to rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. The hours after Mark's arrest felt surreal. I kept expecting someone to tell me it was all a mistake, that I could go home and everything would be as it was. But the truth was, nothing would ever be the same. The police let Lily and me rest in a quiet room at the station, but sleep was impossible. My mind was a storm of relief, anger, and heartbreak. Detective Ramirez came in mid-morning with more news. "Sarah, we've started questioning Mark. He's denying everything, but the evidence is strong. We found bottles of the sedative in his car, and the financial records show he's been draining your accounts for months. He claims it was all for the family's future, but we know better." I nodded, numb. "What happens now?" "He'll be charged with attempted poisoning, fraud, and endangerment. We're also looking into whether he planned something worse. You and Lily will need to give statements, but you're safe here for as long as you need." Lily sat beside me, silent and pale. I stroked her hair, trying to comfort her, but I knew the wounds would take time to heal. "Can we ever go home?" she whispered. I hesitated. "Not yet, sweetheart. Maybe not for a while, but we'll find a new place, somewhere safe, somewhere we can start over." The next few days were a blur of interviews, paperwork, and meetings with lawyers and counselors. If Dr. Patel hadn't noticed the drugs in my system, if he hadn't slipped me that note, I might never have escaped. The community rallied around us. Friends from the library brought meals and offered to help with anything we needed. My sister drove in from out of town, hugging us tightly and promising we'd never be alone. Even Max seemed to sense the change, sticking close to Lily and me, his tail wagging a little more each day. One afternoon, Dr. Patel visited us at the station. He looked tired but relieved. "I'm so glad you're both safe," he said, shaking my hand. "I wish I could have done more." "You did everything," I told him, my voice thick with gratitude. "You saved our lives." He smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. "I've seen too many cases where people don't get out in time. You were brave, Sarah. Don't ever forget that." As the investigation continued, more details came to light. Mark had been planning to move the rest of our savings overseas. He'd even contacted a real estate agent about selling the house without telling me. The police found emails to a woman in another state, someone he'd been seeing for months. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Lily struggled with the truth. She asked questions I couldn't answer. Did Dad ever love us? Was it all a lie? I held her close, telling her that love can be complicated, that sometimes people lose themselves in their own darkness. But inside, I was just as lost as she was. The day we gave our official statements, I felt a strange sense of closure. I told the detectives everything about the note, the drugs, the fear that had haunted me for weeks. Lily spoke bravely about the vitamins Mark had given her, about the way he'd changed, about the nights she'd cried herself to sleep. The officers listened with compassion, promising that we'd done the right thing. Afterward, Detective Ramirez pulled me aside. "You and Lily are survivors. Don't let this define you. You have a chance to build something new." I nodded, tears in my eyes. "Thank you for everything." He smiled. "If you ever need anything, you know where to find me." That night, Lily and I stayed at my sister's house. It was strange, sleeping in a different bed, surrounded by unfamiliar walls. But there was comfort in the chaos, in the laughter of my nieces, in the warmth of my sister's embrace, in the knowledge that we were safe. As I lay awake, I thought about the journey we'd taken, the perfect family I thought I had, the warning I almost ignored, the escape that saved our lives. I realized that safety isn't a place, it's the people who stand by you when everything falls apart. I promised myself that I would never ignore my instincts again, that I would always ask questions, always listen to the small voice inside that says, something isn't right. I promised Lily that we would heal, that we would find happiness again, that we would never let fear control our lives. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of Lily laughing with her cousins. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. We had survived. We had escaped. And now, we had a chance to start over. The days that followed were a strange mix of grief and relief. Lily and I stayed with my sister, slowly adjusting to a new routine. The police kept us updated on Mark's case, and every update brought a new wave of emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief. I found myself mourning not just my marriage, but the life I thought I had, the man I thought I knew. Lily was quiet at first, clinging to me whenever I left the room. She had nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night calling for me. I held her close, whispering that we were safe, that nothing could hurt us now. During the day, she helped my nieces with their homework, played with Max in the backyard, and slowly began to smile again. I watched her, my heart aching with pride and sorrow. She was stronger than she knew. I spent hours talking with my sister, pouring out everything I'd kept bottled up for years. She listened without judgment, offering comfort and advice. "You did the right thing, Sarah," she told me. "You protected your daughter. You saved yourself. That takes courage." I tried to believe her. Some days I felt strong, ready to face whatever came next. Other days, the weight of what had happened threatened to crush me. I replayed every moment, every warning sign I'd missed, every time I doubted my own instincts. But I also remembered the note, the doctor's fear, the way I'd run when everything in me screamed to stay. I realized that survival isn't always about fighting. It's about listening, about trusting yourself, about knowing when to walk away. The community continued to support us. Friends from the library sent cards and flowers. Neighbors dropped off meals and offered to help with anything we needed. Even people I barely knew reached out, sharing their own stories of betrayal and survival. I was overwhelmed by the kindness, by the reminder that even in the darkest times, there are people who care. The police investigation moved quickly. Mark was charged with multiple counts: attempted poisoning, fraud, endangerment, and more. The evidence was overwhelming: the drugs, the financial records, the emails to his mistress. He tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that he'd only wanted to help me and Lily, but no one believed him. His bail was denied, and he was held in custody awaiting trial. Lily and I met with a counselor, working through the trauma together. We talked about trust, about fear, about how to rebuild our lives. The counselor encouraged us to focus on the future, to set small goals, to celebrate every victory, no matter how small. "Healing takes time," she said, "but you're already on your way." I started looking for a new place to live. A small apartment close to my sister, with a park nearby for Max and a good school for Lily. We visited a few places, and Lily helped me pick out curtains and paint colors. It felt strange, starting over, but also exciting. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control over my own life. One afternoon, Dr. Patel called to check on us. "I just wanted to make sure you're both okay," he said. "You were very brave, Sarah. Not everyone would have listened to a warning like that." I thanked him, my voice thick with emotion. "You saved our lives, Dr. Patel. I'll never forget what you did." He was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes, all it takes is one person paying attention. I'm glad you trusted me." As the weeks passed, Lily grew stronger. She made new friends at her new school, joined the soccer team, and started talking about the future again. I watched her blossom, my heart swelling with pride. She was a survivor, just like me. The day of Mark's trial arrived. I sat in the courtroom, holding Lily's hand, surrounded by friends and family. Mark looked smaller than I remembered, his face pale and drawn. He avoided my eyes, staring at the floor as the charges were read. The prosecutor laid out the evidence, every lie, every betrayal, every plan he'd made to hurt us. When it was my turn to testify, I stood tall, my voice steady. I told the truth about the note, the drugs, the fear, and the escape. I looked Mark in the eye and said, "You tried to take everything from us, but you failed. We survived. We're stronger than you ever imagined." The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning with a verdict: guilty on all counts. Mark was sentenced to a long prison term, with no chance of parole for many years. As the judge read the sentence, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Justice had been served. After the trial, Lily and I walked out of the courthouse into the sunless sun. She squeezed my hand, her eyes shining.
We did it, Mom. We're free. I hugged her, tears streaming down my face. Yes, sweetheart.
We're free. But I knew our journey wasn't over. Healing would take time, trust would have to be rebuilt. But we had each other, and that was enough. The weeks after the trial felt like stepping into a new world, one where fear no longer ruled our lives. Lily and I moved into our new apartment, a cozy place filled with sunlight and hope. We painted the walls together, hung up photos of happier times, and let Max claim every corner as his own. Each day, we built new routines: morning walks in the park, dinners at the kitchen table, laughter over silly movies. It wasn't the life I'd imagined, but it was ours, and it was real. Healing wasn't easy. There were nights when Lily woke up crying, haunted by nightmares of the past. There were days when I caught myself flinching at sudden noises or feeling a wave of panic when the phone rang. But slowly the shadows faded. We talked openly about what had happened, about our fears and our dreams. Our counselor reminded us that it was okay to grieve, to be angry, to feel lost. You survived, she said. That's your strength. I found comfort in small victories. The first time Lily invited a friend over, the first time I laughed without guilt, the first time I slept through the night. I started volunteering at the library again, reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. People in the community treated us with kindness and respect, never prying, just offering support when we needed it most. One afternoon, Lily came home from school with a letter. She'd written an essay about her experience, about the night we ran, about the courage it took to start over. Her teacher had shared it with the class, and several students had come forward with their own stories of family struggles. I didn't know so many people felt the same way, Lily said, her eyes shining with pride and relief. I'm not alone. Her words echoed in my heart. Realized that our story, as painful as it was, had the power to help others. I started writing, sharing our journey online, connecting with people from all over the world who had faced their own betrayals and found their own strength. The messages poured in, words of encouragement, stories of survival, promises that hope was possible. I was overwhelmed by the sense of community, by the reminder that even in the darkest times, we are never truly alone. As the seasons changed, so did we. Lily thrived at her new school, making friends, joining clubs, dreaming about college. I found joy in the everyday moments, watching her play soccer, baking cookies together, reading side by side on the couch. Max became a local celebrity, loved by everyone in the neighborhood for his gentle nature and wagging tail. We visited my parents often, sharing meals and laughter, rebuilding the bonds that had been strained by distance and fear. My sister remained my rock, always ready with a listening ear or a warm hug. Our family, though changed, was stronger than ever. One evening, as Lily and I sat on the balcony watching the sunset, she turned to me and said, "Mom, do you ever wish things had been different?" I thought for a moment, then shook my head. I wish we hadn't been hurt. I wish we hadn't been betrayed, but I don't wish for a different life. We found our way through the darkness. We found each other. That's what matters. She smiled, leaning her head on my shoulder. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything. As the sky faded to twilight, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The pain of the past would never fully disappear, but it no longer defined us. We were survivors, not victims. We had faced the unimaginable and come out stronger on the other side. If you're listening to my story, if you've ever felt trapped or betrayed or afraid, I want you to know you are not alone. There is hope, even after the darkest night. There is strength in asking for help, in trusting your instincts, in choosing yourself and those you love. Don't be afraid to run when you need to. Don't be afraid to start over. Your life is worth fighting for. Before you go, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Have you ever had a moment that changed everything? Have you ever had to make an impossible choice to protect yourself or someone you love? Share your story below. Your voice matters, and you never know who you might inspire. And if this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, the most important thing we can do is remind each other that survival is possible, that hope is real, and that even after the worst betrayal, a new beginning is waiting. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing in second chances. And thank you for reminding me and Lily that we are never alone.